Okay, so I promised you guys a follow-up video to the other video that I made on these shelves. These things take some time to put together, but I wanted to show you structurally how something that's made out of really thin material can hold a tremendous amount of weight. So these shelves, when you buy them, are 123 pounds, but they hold 10,000 pounds, 2,500 pounds per shelf. Seems like it's an insane number, but these are sold by Sam's Club. They can't just arbitrarily throw a number on it and hope that it can achieve that without properly testing it. And I can almost guarantee you that's going to be based on the shelves all being properly loaded, loading them on the correct shelf, distributing the weight across the shelves. But again, when you look at the thickness of this material, it is incredibly thin. I mean, if this was just a flat sheet, you could easily bend it with your hand. And they also twist and they flex and they do all sorts of things until you get them all structurally put together. Then once everything is slotted in place, everything just comes together and it works really well. You know, so it's one of those examples of when something is designed and engineered properly, you can get a tremendous amount of capacity and rigidity out of it. Now, this is not like an RV in the sense of, you know, able to go down the road, right? You could probably strap these into a trailer and they'd be pretty robust. I don't think you'd have a problem with it. But you would need something to maintain the integrity of the shape if you were going to put these in a trailer and you wanted them not to fall apart on you, because they can simply slip off or parts can come out if you don't find some way to attach this. And that's similar to like an RV body. So when you look at this cabinet unit, which is significantly more intricate putting it together versus these shelves, these cabinets are also a great example of really good engineering, because when you look at these sidewalls act as a frame. So the bottom of it and the sidewalls act as a frame. But until you put these really thin panels on the back, these right here, there's no rigidity to it. And those are what create the rigid structure, because when you're talking about how an RV is built on a frame, but a frame flexes, regardless of it being a gooseneck trailer frame, regardless of it being almost any type of frame or structure, it's going to flex until you build rigidity into it. Now, these cabinets can't weigh, you know, they don't want these things weighing 1,000 pounds. These probably weigh 100 pounds, maybe a little more than 100 pounds. And they need to be able to support a significant amount of weight. So the actual load capacity is 800 pounds for these cabinets, which come in a box like this. So the box is really compact, and you have to put it together. These walls right here actually come in two pieces. And there's a bunch of small fasteners that kind of hold everything together. And the point of this, again, is from an engineering standpoint. I think a lot of times welders and craftsmen, people who do things themselves but may not understand or may not truly know the engineering aspect behind things, they go into a project and they're like, I need to gusset everything just to be safe. And in many cases, if you're building something super robust, you might want to do that. My son-in-law recently had a huge commercial barbecue pit built by my neighbor. We call him the welder. You guys have seen him on my channel before. And it was made out of 3/8 inch thick steel. It had gussets everywhere. And the reality of that is that barbecue pit was probably 100 times more overbuilt than it needed to be, which caused the thing to weigh like almost 1,000 pounds. It was insane how heavy it is. And it probably didn't need 90% of the reinforcements that were put on it. The welds in the tubes, the welds in the pipe, all of that stuff would have been more than adequate to hold the entire structure together, probably forever. And a lot of times you think overkill in the terms of, let's just add as much steel, as much framework, as much reinforcements, as much gusseting, as many cross members as we can, so you have this peace of mind, but then you don't realize how much material you're adding, how much mass and weight you're adding. And you can quickly double, triple, quadruple the weight of something simply by reinforcing it to a degree that you feel is needed when it's absolutely not needed, but you also have to understand the circumstances of how it's going to be used. Of course, an RV is pulled down the road, so it's entirely different than a lot of this. But a lot of people would have said, we need a gusset right here. There's no way that this shelf, with how it works, can hold this weight. We need a gusset right here. We need a gusset up here. We need to put 1/4 inch thick steel right here. We need to have 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch thick steel right here. It needs to be fully boxed. This needs to be a full tube of 1/4 inch thick steel to be able to hold 10,000 pounds. That's the impression that a lot of people have until you realize that things are designed a certain way and engineered a certain way to be able to hold weight based on physics, based on just material and how materials work together, based on bracing each other and creating a solid superstructure in a scenario where you might think, okay, so this frame by itself, if it didn't have any of these center shelves in place, could it hold 10,000 pounds? No, it couldn't, because if you put all the weight up here, this piece right here would eventually fail. But having the bracing in the correct place, having the correct material where it needs to go is what determines the structure of something. Just like these cabinets right here. A lot of people would go, there's no way these cabinets can hold 800 pounds. I mean, look at these shelves. I can flex a shelf like this, but because of the bracing that they've put in here, because of how it's designed and how it's going to work in conjunction with this cabinet when it's fully completed and everything is done, that's where you get your strength from. So again, when we armchair engineer and we criticize a product because we think it should be built a certain way, or we think it needs certain materials, oftentimes those thoughts could equate to a product that is so super strong it would never fail. I totally agree. Or so super rigid that you think that that rigidity is a plus when in fact it could be the downfall. It could be the reason why things crack and fail. But ultimately, at the end of the day, how much mass are you adding to it? If you have a frame that weighs, let's say 3,000, 4,000 pounds for your typical fifth wheel, but then it ends up weighing 8,000 pounds because you've put so much extra material, because you're like, there's no way they should use 3/16 inch thick steel there. It just doesn't make sense. So you want to go to 1/4 inch thick steel, and you're like, that's what we need. Where all of a sudden you've doubled or tripled the weight of the material in every area of the frame because you want that peace of mind, because you don't believe in the engineering aspect of it. You just believe in the material aspect, that the material is what makes the strength, when in fact the correct material used in the right space, engineered properly, can hold a tremendous amount of weight. I don't think Grand Design's example of bridges flexing was a great example, because a bridge will typically weigh multiple times more than the vehicles added up on top of it. So you have the superstructure and strength there for it to be able to last under almost any circumstance, because weight isn't so much an issue. They can make a bridge as strong as they want because it's not an issue of how much weight is in the construction of it. It's more of an issue of how long is the bridge going to last overall. But for us to be able to tow RVs down the road, weight is a huge factor. It's as important as understanding the engineering and structural aspect of it, because we can't have a product that weighs so much, even if it builds peace of mind, but then you need an 18-wheeler to haul it, or you need a semi-tractor to haul it. That's the thing you have to think about. Everything is relative when it comes to working with a structure and understanding where your compromises are, where your weight needs to be, where it doesn't need to be, and to make an entire package that is something you guys can actually tow down the road. That's the key behind things. So when I make videos talking about frame flex and talking about these other things, don't think I'm trying to steer the conversation just protecting the manufacturer. I'm just taking a different approach than a lot of people who think about it. A lot of people who are criticizing all of this simply are going, I don't care what it costs or how heavy it is. If it doesn't fail, that's best for the consumer. Well, the fact is, if you put so much material in that it is unlikely to ever fail, then your consumer is unlikely to ever purchase it, because they won't have the vehicle to tow it. And even if they did have the vehicle to tow it, it might be so rigid it would shake itself apart. It would break itself apart because of that rigidity. So just things to think about. These are all important topics whenever you're thinking about RVs. Just look at everything in your life: shelving systems, cabinet systems, your home. A lot of structures require a lot of components to be properly engineered, put together, and designed to work in conjunction with each other to create the structure you're looking for. Aircraft, school buses, semi-trailers, those big dry van trailers, a lot of people commented that they're so different than RVs. If you were looking at a trailer which is predominantly frame rails to hold a container like off of a ship, yes, those are a lot different, because the structure of the container is its own monocoque self-supporting structure sitting on top of a frame. So in essence, it's like two frames. On a dry van, which is your typical semi-tractor going down the road, those containers will not hold together if the sidewalls aren't intact. And even then, there's been a lot of cases where they have broken because they've been overloaded, and considering the fact they're designed to work in conjunction with the tractor going all the way up to 80,000 pounds GCWR, there are always instances where things can fail when you use them beyond the means of what they've been engineered and designed to be used for. Anyways, guys, sure hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this is a good kind of part 2 to the video that I filmed recently that you guys saw the shelves in the box and I was kind of talking about it. I know a lot of people wanted me to go in more depth and explain what was going on and show you the actual shelves in action. We don't have anywhere near 10,000 pounds here. When we're said and done with all this, we'll probably have 500 pounds on all of them. But understanding how things are designed, and that it's not so much about the thickness of the material, it's not so much about where and how you gusset it, it's a combination of multiple factors that have to be built together and work in conjunction and cohesively together to make a structure work properly. Anyways, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you soon, because I still have to assemble this one, and then I still have to assemble that one. And these things take forever. Talk to you again.